Good afternoon from our HQ here at London Bridge. Soccerex Connected. It's the final day. Ben Jacobs with you. We've got a stellar lineup moving on very shortly to our noon GMT panel. No one is bigger than the club except them, the them being the players. Before that, just a reminder, engage with our exhibitors via the app. And we've got an absolutely jaw-dropping pair of signed shirts to give away today, courtesy of the International Champions Cup and our friends at La Liga North America. How about this? Antoine Griezmann signed Barcelona shirt and a signed team shirt by Atletico Madrid's current squad. All you've got to do to win the former, that Griezmann shirt, is send us a photograph of your favourite ever La Liga shirts. Do so via @Soccerex on Twitter. Please use the hashtag Soccerex Connected and remember to get creative as well. So don't just pull a photo off the internet. If you do, of course, make sure that you have the copyright to do so. But what I would prefer is that you send a photo of you wearing your favorite La Liga shirt, or maybe stick a La Liga shirt on a pet or a young baby. Have some fun with it. But either way, @Soccerex, and please use the hashtag Soccerex Connected. And in addition, if you want to win the Antoine Griezmann shirt, you basically just have to be very, very nice. Send lots of questions in and engage, because we're using our highly secretive algorithm to look at all of your engagement throughout today and the week. And the most engaged viewer will win that signed Atletico Madrid shirt. So two great prizes. And thanks again to La Liga North America and the International Champions Cup. Thanks as well to our presenting partner, WSC Sports, who we heard from just a moment ago. More about them throughout the course of the day, but let's move straight on to our next panel now. As I say, it's called No One is Bigger Than the Club Except for Them. And for a new set of football superstars, the idea that the club they join is bigger than them doesn't really equate. Ronaldo, for example, has more Instagram followers than Real Madrid, Barcelona and Manchester United put together. In the women's game, when Alex Morgan joined Tottenham Hotspur on loan, she came with more followers than the entire club. So in this session, we look at how some players are now brands of their own and how this affects the sponsorship landscape, as well as the relationship between players and their employers. To discuss, we're delighted to be joined by Erkut Sogut, the founding partner at Football Agent Education. Misha Sher is with us, the worldwide vice president at MediaCom Sport and Entertainment. Michele Rinchiuso is the VP of Operations at RocNation, and a familiar face on our panel, Mikael Silvestre, the former Manchester United, Arsenal and France defender, and now a football agent. And how about this for a moderator as well? Simply the best in the business. He is the chief football writer at The Times. It's a warm welcome and a very good afternoon to Henry Winter.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here at Soccerex Connected. Just to flesh out some of those figures that Ben was talking about, with Ronaldo, he has 259 million Instagram followers. Ben mentioned the other clubs. Real Madrid, 95 million on Instagram. Barcelona, 93 million on Instagram. Manchester United, 39 million. So as Ben says, Ronaldo, the star, one of the great stars, has more than them combined. So look at these stars: Ronaldo, Messi, Pogba, Ozil. These are the stars, sports Hollywoods. And many of the younger generation, my kids' generation, will follow players as much as clubs. So we've got this fantastic panel here, and I really must start with Erkut. You know Mesut Ozil well. With a move, cutting to the chase, with a move, such a high-profile move that Mesut made from Arsenal to Fenerbahce, how much do the sort of social media numbers, the intellectual property, all that, tie in with a move like that?
Yeah, first of all, hi, and thanks, Henry. And yeah, I mean, social media becomes every day more important for us as agents working with players like Ozil and others as well. It plays a big impact in the deal right now. So it's not anymore just the numbers, a playing contract we sign on one side, but also the image right contract or the commercial agreements beside the contract becoming every day more important. And that's the area where social media and the brand identity and all the brand importance the player has and brings with on the table makes a huge difference, because he's bringing a whole fan base with himself. So it's big for the club where he goes, and the club can use that fan engagement, the fan base of that player, to bring again his sponsors on board, his products on board. So it helps both sides. If when a big club and a big player coming together, or in any case, I mean, it becomes more important every day. And it for us as agents and lawyers of players, we need to understand that area. We need to work with specialists in that area to build that opportunity, because it becomes every day more commercial. And that part will become maybe one day, Henry, in 10 years' time, the commercial deal of a player will be higher than the playing deal, the playing contract.
when you get a player of Mesut's global stature with all his followings, with all his achievements in his game and with all his following, can that affect the share price of the club if it's publicly limited? Can it actually affect that share price when they move there?
I mean, yes, it can, definitely. We have seen it in different clubs, like when Ronaldo moved to Juventus and when Mesut moved to Fenerbahce, the shares increased massively within these clubs. Even the news that the player like them can come or will come increases the share prices amazingly. And it's not just a player who comes over, brings his own social media. The player who is nowadays like, it becomes more brand. And it doesn't need to be a very big player to become a good brand. Some players saying, hey, do I need to have 100 million followers to be a good brand and to get commercial leads? No, you need to be a good brand. You need to build on yourself very early. We created, Henry, in 2014, the Mesut Özil M10 brand in Los Angeles with the designer, the owner of Undefeated. His name is James Bond. He helped us actually to create that brand identity, which took us nearly 1 year. And then we brought that brand out into the world with, let's say, his esports called M10 Esports and use it, that brand identity. His fashion brand is M10 Streetwear, is using the same M10 sign, and we're selling in 72 countries. That's the latest number. We're selling everyday items. So the player is like a club, actually. You need fan engagement. You can have fashion. You can have commercial. It's like becoming bigger and bigger. And if you do it, really, but you have to work with the player like very closely and deeply to create that brand. If you're an agency having 500 players, you can't build that. You need to be a boutique agents and people around you who are working to create that brand, which takes a couple of years. Then it's possible.
Just to pick up on something you said, can you be a lesser player and actually have a bigger brand image by working on it?
Yeah, 100%. I think we have here people like Misha and Michele. They're more experts on that side. They will explain it. I believe in so. Yeah, definitely. It's about what you bring out there. What's your identity? You need to first find out what's your brand identity. Who are you and what are you standing for? You need to work on that. You need to build that. You need to have a logo. You need to be standing for something. And then you work around. You work with fashion. You work in gaming. You have to see where the interests are of the player. And then you do cross networking. That's very interesting. Like when you start, someone from football is working with someone from fashion. Someone from football is working with someone from gaming. So the latest thing we're doing right now, Henry, is really interesting. We're creating a media agency called M10 Synergy. So what we're trying to do is, and Misha is working on that with us, to create the synergy about all these areas I said into one content platform, whereas like a synergy happening, and then the content is the most important part here in the end product, to put the content in and to even generate more opportunities for the clients.
Misha, can you expand more on that synergy?
Yeah, I mean, look, the idea that Erkut is getting to is you have to create, you have to start to think about what the brand is all about, right? And pretty early on, he's done that with Mesut in 2014. A lot of players don't really give it a lot of thought, or they think that the logo, creating a nice logo, is then a brand. It's not a brand. When you think about some of the most powerful brands in the world, whether that's Disney or Apple or Nike or Adidas, there's a very strong inherent brand identity that people associate with. It's the same thing that goes with it. Same applies to the player. So there's an opportunity now for players to do this and to start to build affinity with people beyond their playing days or during their playing days, and leverage that. I mean, what Erkut's talking about now around M10 Synergy is that at some point you get to a level where you have 50, 60, 70 million followers. That in effect becomes a media company. And we've seen NBA players from LeBron James to Steph Curry and others start create media businesses because they don't need traditional media companies to get their voice out, and they start collaborating with other talent. They start creating new formats because they actually have that sort of appeal and global reach that allows them to basically operate as a media business.
Misha, are any players resistant to this? Do they say like an N'Golo Kante, would he just say, I just want to play football and I don't want to be doing 4, promoted tweets a month or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think there will certainly be players who are more likely to engage with something like this. I mean, at the end of the day, it's down to your personality. It has to be authentic. That's the only way that it works. But I also think that players, like whether that's N'Golo Kanté or others, they need to realize that the careers are short. You'd like to think that the careers are long. They'll play for 10, 13 years, but the reality is that they don't. Your career at the top is relatively short. You might have 7, 8 years at most. So it's not about just getting into all these areas that are not related to football. It's just about planning your career beyond football. At some point, whether that's 33, 34, 36, you're going to have to retire. You're going to have life outside of football. Whilst you're a player, that is the most important period in your career in which you can start to think about what are those areas. You don't have to be you don't have to be appearing in 5, 6, 7, 10 different commercials, but you need to start to think about what is it outside of football that I might be interested in, and what can I do now during my career that can get me to a point where I can, whenever that is, I can transition into those areas, and I can have a much I can have a much healthier sort of lifestyle beyond football, as opposed to what we're seeing with a lot of players who don't plan on that. And then at one point the career finishes and they don't know what to do with themselves. They never really thought about life outside of football. They still think that the type of income they've had will always be there. And that's not the case. And more than 50% of them end up going bankrupt within 5 years. So it's not just about becoming a brand. It's about leveraging all this opportunity they have as players to think about careers beyond football.
Mikael, if I can bring in your professional eye on this, touching on what Misha's just said, were you aware of preparing for the future?
Yeah, I was pretty much aware of it even before starting, because my parents straight away said to me, you might get injured, so be good at school. That was one condition for me to be able to just practice, go to training and play with my friends. So it was always in the back of my mind that I had to prepare for the future. Also because my cousin played for France, he played for Auxerre, he had his career 10 years older. So I knew that even him being on top, he could be finished very early. So even when I was playing for Arsenal, I wanted to start a football agency, but obviously I was playing, so I was too early. But going back to the platform for the players, I'm going to tell you a funny story. So early 2000, I'm part of this new generation who's getting a website, and that website needs content. So after games, one of the team of me, my agent, is asking me question about the game, how it went, So it's in French, then translated in English, then it's picked up by you guys in UK, the Mirror, the Sun or whatever, and the next day, the hairdryer in my face. The gaffer went mad. So I cut short on the website, I stopped it straight away because it was just about being present. There was no plan. There was no purpose. I had no other interest at this time than my family and playing football. So it was good, but it was nonsense really on a day-to-day.
You talk about the famous hairdryer and Sir Alex Ferguson, the gaffer. You had a decade under him, 4 titles, 1 Champions League. Can you just sort of expand on what someone was like? Because Sir Alex to us was a magnificent manager, but he was quite old school. So we saw when David Beckham started, becoming a global brand, Cristiano Ronaldo to an extent at Manchester United. You say that you got the hairdryer treatment, but was he aware that players were becoming almost like mini corporations, these businesses, and they did need, I know social media wasn't so prevalent then, and he wouldn't have allowed Instagram and Twitter and phones in the dressing room, but was he aware, or was there that growing tension?
He was aware, I can tell you this, he's aware of so many things. As you know, he's got so many interests outside of football. But the problem was, I think, and it still is for many managers, it's a contradiction. Because as soon as a player goes into another direction, which could be for Mesut, for example, having his own brand. It could be music, it could be fashion. Then the manager straight away is thinking he's not focused on the job, and that could be the case. But I think with the right people, the right setup, the right team behind to prepare and everything on a daily basis, I think you can do that. So, but going back to your question, it was difficult for him to just think about players having other interest than Manchester United. Before Champions League game, he would say, don't even go outside and walk your dog. You need to focus.
Really? Well, even to Roy Keane, who loves walking his dogs.
Even to Roy, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how do you focus? How do you juggle those two, the interest? Because, you're a human being as well as an athlete. Sometimes it's healthy to have that extra interest. And I'm particularly thinking of how Marcus Rashford manages it at the moment. He's playing well for Manchester United. He's playing well for England. And yet, I know it's obviously a commercial thing. It's a community, charity, vital social issue that he's addressing. But the power of social media, we've seen how Marcus Rashford from your old club has used it in addressing child food poverty in the UK.
Fantastic work, absolutely. And I'm with you, on the fact that it's really important also as a human being to open yourself to other things, because living football, eating football, sleeping football, it can't be good. You play every 3 days. It's good to have some other interest in life. And Marcus is helping others, tackling poverty in UK, and that's fantastic. I mean, United has been involved with UNICEF over the years, and the players have been involved, and it gives you so much privilege to be able to use your greatness and to help others. So what Marcus is doing is fantastic, also because he's showing that he's capable of managing both. His performances for United, for England, he keeps growing. He's still in a development phase. He's still a young player, but he hasn't had a drop in his performances. And that's due to the fact that around him there is a team. It's well organized, it's prepared, it's sensible, and it's always positive. So he's bringing a positivity around him, and I think he's getting the benefit of it on the pitch. So it's just a perfect example.
Thank you. Michele, you have moved to RocNation, where Marcus is now. How do you see that with him? How do you balance that? I mean, I know Kelly works with Marcus and the family is really good around him and the club, clearly. But how do you balance that? Do you have to communicate with the club about the various pressures on a player's time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kelly, as you just said, our colleague, is in charge of Marcus and is in daily contact with him. Obviously, it's really important to manage expectations because, I mean, all his initiatives shouldn't really distract him, of course, from his day-to-day for the club, right? So his daily routine is, of course, performing for Manchester United and making sure that he does everything for the club what they require. But on top of that, of course, Kelly makes sure that everything is kind of, as to your point, really balanced. Yeah, that he's not doing too much commercial stuff or too many things he shouldn't do on a day-to-day. So yeah, it's a day-to-day contact. Well, let's say we're talking to him daily.
When you talk to Marcus, it's like talking to a 32-year-old rather than someone who's in their early 20s. Are you very fortunate you've got the perfect character? Because he could have had a go at the Prime Minister. He could have reacted. He's handling it in a very calm, dignified way. Even when people have a slight go at him on social media, he handles it well, doesn't he? Is that you, or is that him? Is that his mother, his brothers?
I would clearly say that's him. He's a very grown man. He's really mature for his age. So definitely it's him. It's not us.
Yeah, just in terms of balancing that, you're obviously there to sort of generate money for him and sort of direct his career. How do you balance that, his commitment to the community, with then doing some commercial events as well? Is there a sort of balance you have to get, almost a sort of sensitivity, because you don't want him to be doing all this amazing, he's doing this fantastic work on food poverty, but you then don't want the next day for him to be in a photo shoot or something like that?
No, I know what you mean. Of course, for us, it's important that we represent what he wants to do. I mean, of course, if he says, well, I want to clearly focus on it in that project, then it's nothing we're going to bring along, because we know, again, to the point, we balance time, right? So, and he has only 24 hours a day, as all of us. So we make sure we bring, obviously, some opportunities to the table, and then we balance it out. Okay, does that fit your brand? Do you want to do that? How much time does it require? And how much time do you want actually to invest into that? So we balance it out and discuss it always with him.
You have Kevin De Bruyne, the PFA's current player of the year, so a magnificent footballer, but actually he's pretty low key, isn't he? So commercially, or are there things that we don't necessarily see that he's involved with?
So I think, and that's probably to our point, we've done probably a very good job in positioning it in the right way. Kevin has a lot of sponsors, a lot of partners at the moment. It's just a matter of not overly communicating it, because that also can damage a brand, right? Again, a player is also a brand. And if you overly commercialize it, it's not authentic. So you have to be really smart in a way, how do you position it? So to the point, he has a lot of partners, but it's just not omnipresent, let's say that.
Erkut, can I come back to you on Mesut? How is there a tension within clubs when you're dealing with them between, say, the commercial department and the footballing department of who wants the player? I mean, Mesut's obviously an incredibly talented footballer, world champion, and as you say, he's got this amazing broad reach to many generations. But do you ever find there's a tension within a club? The commercial department are going, yeah, he's a good footballer, but we want more numbers.
I mean, like, if you sign as a player like Mesut with a club like Arsenal or any other club, you're already kind of restricted to what you can do commercially. So this is something we need to know. Like, if the main sponsor at Arsenal is, for example, Emirates, and at Man City is Etihad, so that already tells you can't do any other airline as a commercial deal. And then on top of that, you have an image right contract. That's also the club pays you for your image. So you are kind of restricted in what you can do and what you can't do. And if you, on top of that, have a boot deal, so that's actually done. Literally, the club and the boot deal, they take over a lot of space in your opportunities. So therefore, you have not actually that much area, Henry, where you can work on. And so you need to be really careful what you can do. And you need to always work with the club together. So you need to always tell them what you're planning to do, because in the end, he's employed by the club. So that's the main relationship we have. And as you maybe know, Henry, in certain clubs in the United Kingdom, also in Spain, there's a lot about that. Even if you do a commercial deal, you have to split that income with the club. And in certain clubs, it's above 50%. Like, and that's sometimes for players, they say, wait a minute, I'm not doing here any more commercial deals, because I'm actually working with that deal more for the club, like, and giving my time and energy. Where's the balance? And so there are certain clubs where I know some players, they say, I will not do any commercial deal. I just take my money and go. But there are some clubs where the player have a big take on the commercial side. He would do some. But as I say, especially boot deal, Henry, for a big player, and that's my personal opinion, for a big player, I mean, with a huge reach, it doesn't make actually that much sense to do a boot deal, right? This is something I'm saying out loud, because I think he can build his own brand and even make his own boots if he's big enough on reach, because a boot deal is not just a boot deal. I think Michele worked years and years for Puma. He knows better than us. You actually restrict yourself to everything. If you do a deal with Nike or Puma or Adidas, they're not selling boots that much. They're selling sneakers. It's actually a sneaker deal, I call it. It's not a boot deal. And on top of them, they restrict you in doing other things. They even have headphones. They have, you wear everything. You're like restricted. But if a player is big enough, he could build his own fashion brand. He could do his own thing, especially while he's still playing football and is on his peak. So he can reach his fans and build the after career. If you start after your career to trying to build your own fashion and brand, it's too late. So therefore, you might not get the same amount of money maybe at that time, but for the future and for the long term, it makes sense for them to do their own thing.
The logical extension of that is that Mesut designs and manufactures his own boots.
Yeah, we are in work on that, actually. It will come in summer, hopefully. Yeah, that's what people say when the contract with Adidas ran out. It was 7.5 years. For us, it was clear we will do our own thing afterwards, because he's still playing football. So we launched first a streetwear brand, M10 Streetwear, as I said to you. So I can see on my Shopify app and control the measure, we're selling in over 70 countries worldwide. So we're reaching the fan base, actually. and then we create as well data. So we do actually that what the clubs are doing, but on the player side, not on the club side. And then now we're working on a boot deal with an Asian company. So they will have the boots, especially for the Southeast Asian market. So you can build these things while you're actively playing football. But if you bound yourself to a boot manufacturer for your whole life, you will not have the same opportunity. So you need to be balanced. And especially we discussed it today, players are becoming more brands. Players should be also push their own brands in the middle instead of, I mean, the club is clear. That's the main thing you have to have, the club brands, that's where you're employed. That's the main target, 90% of your work. But other than that, what you do on the side, you need to be very careful. You might push other brands more than you can push actually yourself, your own brand, especially for after career.
So just to clarify, Mesut could be wearing his own boots without a swoosh, without three stripes, with none of the sort of familiar logos. They will have the sort of the M10 image. They will be completely designed by him. And you say it's for the Asian market, but there'll be a lot of people in the UK, in Germany, in Turkey who want to buy that as well. Do you see that as a global market for a Mesut Ozil boot?
We don't think actually in that sense globally that much at the moment, but it can be. But we see it for now for where is his fan base, because we know it from the socials. We know exactly where he has most of his fans. So we approach these markets, obviously. And then we don't want to, we're not competing, we're not working against the big ones. We can't compete with them. But we want to get into the market where we want to put the brand out more, that it's more seen in different parts of the world. It becomes a brand recognition for the future, so that you do, again, cooperation with other brands. So it's for us to start regionally, locally, and then grow hopefully worldwide. Why not? If you can do it with great designers. So the only problem is, even with the Premier League, for example, there are regulations which says you can't just have your own boot manufacturing company in that sense. It must have this certain requirements, which Adidas, Nike, Puma, Under Armour, whatever, they all fulfill these requirements. So you can't just have a white boot, let's say, and then put your own M10 on it or Barclays on it or any other brand and play with it. The Premier League won't allow that. But other countries have other regulations. So you need to really be careful what you do with it and go into detail.
But sorry, just on a technical point, how can the Premier League say that? If the boot is safe, it's properly manufactured, it's manufactured in a sort of socially responsible way, how can they say, surely it's
Henry, I checked it into the last detail with British lawyers, with foreign lawyers. I checked it, I was exactly saying the same thing. And I found out it doesn't work. They just don't. It's in the Premier League regulations. It doesn't allow you to put any brand on your boots. You can't do it, even on the charity, so you need to be careful. So it's just like if you fulfill these requirements like Nike, Puma, this fulfill, it's just for them, literally. So, I mean, Michele will know better than me. He was with Puma long years, so he will know that as well.
Go on, Michele. This is from your long years with Puma. Can you see what Mesut is trying to do, and can you see more and more footballers have that? And when you've got lawyers and agents of the scale of Erkut, that actually,
Michele, the other one,
going to happen.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting one, I have to say, because and I had this conversation, I think, multiple times, obviously, at my time when I was at Puma. And in an ideal scenario, of course, a player would have his own boot. And I can tell you that when we enter conversation, when we entered bigger conversations, obviously with bigger players, that always came up. I think the market, and I think to Mesut's case now, it's a very, very specific fan base at the moment he's talking to. I think in that specific case, it would work. Maybe Cristiano Ronaldo would probably also work, and potentially Messi. But from the numbers I've seen, I know that even a Messi boot was not really a top seller. It was more a marketing tool, right? And that's with majority of the boots. If they go like, it's the Griezmann boot, it's the Cristiano boot, it's the Messi boot, it's the Pogba boot. All of them are nice to have, and they will sell ultimately a couple of boots, but they will never pay off or will never be a break even. It's more a marketing tool, obviously, to please also the player and the agents, right? So I don't think moving forward that this is going to be a trend which you're going to see in the marketplace, because I feel still players like to wear the swoosh or the Adis or the Pumas or maybe even the Mizunos. Yeah, because they know they get quality, right? It's a risk, and I know that Erkut is very brave, and he's very entrepreneurial, so chapeau with that. But I know that if he does things, then of course it's going to be well thought through. I personally think the trend is remaining to stay with the manufacturers which are already in the marketplace, because you know you get quality, you know they've been doing that for decades.
Mikael, what's the weirdest commercial proposition you had put to you during your career?
Sorry, say again, Henry?
Well, what's the strangest commercial deal you've ever had proposed to you? I can remember going into the Fiorentina club shop one day, and there was some Batituste anti-aging cream being sold. I mean, it's, the world is huge. Opportunity.
No, nothing strange really. It was because obviously I spent 9 years at Manchester United, so they are selling everything: bed sheets, toilet paper, toothbrush. Yeah, for any type of purchase, there is something to respond to your demand. But personally, no, nothing. Just the classic good deal with the classic manufacturers.
When you move from sort of traditional football countries like in Europe, and then you went to America, did you notice, was it a step up in terms of some of the commercials, in terms of within the club itself?
There was a lot more awareness on the power of social media. Obviously over there, you have to remember that incomes for rookies from universities and the rest of the players is very low. You know, Misha, you were saying that your career at the top is very short. Over there, it's very short, and it's very less paid as in Europe. So the guys have to intensify their presence on social media, whatever business they can bring to the table and be involved. They do it. We've had a lot of conversation on business while being with the team, because obviously also they are coming from university, so they've got that business head. And it was very interesting for me, because they had an approach about their time in the MLS was short, and they were always thinking about different business ideas. And for me, it was refreshing and good to see that side of my job, really.
Misha, you're an expert in helping players develop brands. What's the next frontier for footballers to invade commercially?
Next frontier, I think what we're going to see is that players eventually, and probably in a very near future, will approach their off-field sort of endeavors in the same way that they've been approaching their on-field endeavors. What I mean by that is, when we think about players thinking about their performance, they think about a nutritionist that they could work with, or someone to work with them on endurance and so on. Who are the types of people who can help them perform at the very, very top? They surround themselves with those people, and that's been going on for some time, and they understand that. And I think what we're going to see, and what Erkut has been doing with Messis, is that a lot of players will realize that having success off the pitch, whether that's endorsement deals, I think we're all used to, but how do you create something that connects with people? How do you build an audience? How do you then parlay that into potentially down the road a media company, or your own, developing your own IP and so on? I think what we'll see is players will realize that there is an art to this, and there is a need to surround yourself in the same way that you do, that they've gotten used to in other areas of their lives. So I can see that happening, accelerating over the course of the next, I suppose, 2 to 3 years.
There's some questions coming in now. Misha, can I start this one off with you? This is from Charlie. Why have we not seen NBA-like shoe deals in football?
Look, because I think in football, you mean what, the likes of, just so I'm clear, so the likes of LeBron James and others?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, there's a couple of reasons. One is when you think about America, right? The U.S. as a market, U.S. is by far, U.S. and China, I suppose, but U.S. is by far the biggest commercial market, right? So that's where most, you look at, you look at Nike, Adidas, any of the biggest brands, that's where they're doing most of their sales. So an NBA and boot deals go hand in hand in a market like that. It's a very, very effective and powerful marketing tool. Footballers, even Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe Cristiano being an exception, are not on the same, come nowhere near the appeal and influence as NBA stars. Again, an NBA is big in which markets? In the US and in China. So two of the biggest markets in the world. Also, we know that the NBA players are much better equipped as what we call sort of as influencers, as people who transcend sport into culture. And because that's the way that NBA has always been. It sits at the cross section of sport, music, fashion, and so on. Football, until recently, and perhaps still the case now, isn't really that yet. Players don't really transcend into culture and influence purchase to the same level that someone who plays in the NBA.
Erkut, a question here from John. Do you think clubs' ulterior motives for branding still plays a part in the signing of players? See Shinji Kagawa at Manchester United after Park Ji-sung.
Yeah, definitely. It's huge in countries like England, but also I see it a lot in Germany, where they sign a lot Japanese or South Korean players, just to bring also the brands over. With the player, actually, the brands coming over. I know that Dortmund did it quite a lot with these kind of players, and they literally, some of the deals, I think it would maybe even structured that if the player comes, the brand's coming. If the player goes, the brands goes as well. It's really attached a lot. And it will come more and more. And I can see that in different markets as well. And I've seen also the Arabic market now, the North African Arabic market, some players like even now Mohamed Salah is there now, and others coming from that region brings also like the attraction, and also it brings everything with it, not just the TV rights for the country, but also the commercial, the opportunities, engagement. It's big, and it will be always there, and it will go bigger. I think the next star will be probably from India or from China. One will come over. From a billion country, more than 1 billion people in both of them. I think to find the next Indian superstar in football will be huge commercially. And I think they will try to tap into that market. The clubs will do that, definitely.
We've got 10 minutes left, just rattling through some of the questions. Mikael, Silvestre, if I can put this one to you. This is from Philippe. Has the commercialization of the game reached the stage that a team's media and wider business profile comes into the choice for a new club as much as on-pitch success? So partly from a player's perspective.
No, I don't think it's the important factor. It's always the success and what the club represents from 100 years old. You look at the history, you look at the current squad, the current manager, you look at your teammates you're gonna join. What's the next step for your career? That's the choice number one. And then, yeah, obviously once you make your choice, you look at the commercial appeal. Can my brand and my personality match with this club? Maybe if you're not very keen on what Lazio used to be, you choose not to go to Italy. But otherwise, I think the main reason why you choose a club remain and will remain the football, because without the pitch, like Erkut said, you're 90% your commitment with the club. You're employed by the club, and why you're there is to play football. If you don't enjoy yourself, you're not gonna be playing well. You're not gonna succeed as a player, as an individual, and with the team as well. So I think the answer is no.
Yeah, right. Michele, from your perspective, would you have that conversation with a player about the sort of the business success and the image of a club, or is it from their perspective purely footballing?
I think it's important to look at the player first per se. Is it a bigger player? Is it, like, as you say, is he appealing to a certain audience or not? And then I think first and foremost, a football player is a football player. So he definitely needs to do his job on pitch, because only if he's on pitch relevant, then he automatically becomes off pitch relevant as well. Of course, you can create a market that's then down to the education of the player and the club. But I think first and foremost, he's a football player. Only then you can take that and sit down with the player and ask him about his interest. What is his identity, as Erkut said initially? Where does he want to invest time and where not? Because it's a kind of like it's an interesting focus. Where does a player see himself from now in 5 to 10 years, 20 years time? Yeah, and I think that's something with the right management, the right setup, you have to go through from the beginning.
Erkut, a question here from Patrick. How has the employer-employee relationship changed? Is it now more of a brand partnership than traditional employment?
Interesting question. Yeah, I mean, it becomes more and more to actually what we all discussed, like the players are becoming more important. It becomes like kind of, I get a feeling in 10 years we're talking about players league, not anymore clubs league. This is the future, I guess, where players will play a big stake. And I can imagine a player signs in 10 years time with the club sitting there and having 3-4 people with himself. One is doing the commercial side, one is doing the media side, one is doing the contract, like the playing side. It will be so much. I'm talking with players in big leagues, in big clubs like Arsenal or Man City or Liverpool, or actually every Premier League club is quite big. So in these kind of clubs, the player is kind of a CEO of his own. It becomes to the momentum when he goes to a deal, he actually signs separate deals. It's not anymore, he signs image right contract, playing contract, media contract. So he's offering his all ability and services for the club, and the club benefits from that. On the commercial side, by selling jerseys. On the brand side, they can say, we have this player come and be a sponsor for us. On the playing side, he's playing good football. So it all goes kind of hand in hand. It's a package, actually, what makes it so interesting for the future. And the player with the best package will be the most interesting player for the club.
Mikael, drawing on your experience from dressing rooms around the world, what does this mean when you've got players have become so powerful? What does this mean to the status and the power of the manager? Is it undermining the manager in a way?
Look, I've been sharing dressing room with Zinedine Zidane, with Ronaldo, Fenomeno, Cristiano, with David Beckham, and their brand was massive. I mean, especially Becks at the time he was playing for United. And imagine that was without really pushing the social media. So if he was right now, it would be amazing. He would be above everyone. He would be killing it. So still, there's a dynamic, there's a hierarchy, there's the leader in the dressing room, and that doesn't really change. In fact, if a player is doing too much, the dressing room will tell him. They will point finger, and you would be put back into your place, because like with Michele said before, what matters is how relevant you are on the pitch. And if you underperform, because we know that on a Wednesday evening or Wednesday, there was a day off, you went to Paris for a photo shoot or a commercial, and then Saturday, you're not doing that pass, or you have cramp and you are injured, then your teammates will tell you straight away.
You mentioned all those great players that you've played alongside. Did they have one common trait, characteristic? Was it a work ethic? Was it the hunger, a fire that never went out?
The mentality, to be the best at everything, the best at training, the best performer at the weekend, the best outside the field as well, especially for Cristiano and Becks, the best looking guy in the dressing room as well. So it's a trend, it's an obsession, and that's why they became the best in the world at football.
Michele, we've got only a few minutes left. Where do you see the game, the brand, the player relationship with clubs in 3-4 years' time? Because it's changed over the last 3-4 years, particularly with the explosion of social media.
Yeah. And to your point, explosion of social media, I think, is kind of like a good messaging here. I see the trend, and that's maybe just me personally, I see the trend swamping over to Europe that becomes to, like, as is in the US, more of a players orientated league. So you see the power of players. I mean, best example again, Cristiano Ronaldo going all of a sudden to Juventus. What did it do for Juventus? I mean, the jersey sales were like blowing up completely after 2 days, right? So I see that obviously this trend is also coming more to Europe. So I think if the clubs are smart, they're trying to collaborate with these brands, players' brands in the future, because if they don't, they're obviously losing out on opportunities to grow even more their fan base, right? Because if you look at it now, and I can just talk it on when I was younger, I was following El Fenomeno, right? I loved always where he was playing. So if he was at Inter, of course I was watching Inter. If he was playing for Real Madrid, I was watching Real Madrid. And I think this trend is coming even more and more into the place. So I think give us 10, 15 years, and I think we're going to have a more players oriented and led league in Europe as well.
Misha, final question as we're beginning to, I don't think we've got VAR or anything. I don't think we're going to have any sort of added time on this. Where do you see it going? This final question from Oscar, who's sort of along on what you've all been talking about. What is the next most exciting step? Is it esports? Is it fashion?
Well, look, I mean, esports is interesting. It's clearly, it is the biggest entertainment genre in the world now. It is bigger than music and film industries put together. So, and we know that it's been popularized in a very different way now since the pandemic, because people have always been gaming, and now it's sort of it's a cross-generational thing. You can have kids and parents and grandparents all sort of playing together. So esports and gaming coming together with football, we'll see a lot more of that. But going back to my earlier point, I think in coming years we'll see a shift from players taking endorsement money from companies to becoming co-creators of their own brand and driving their own agenda, and not being reliant on promoting other companies, but realizing that they have such an influence and such pull that they can co-create things for themselves. So, and I think that's gonna happen. We see a lot more of that happening over the coming years.
Misha, thanks so much, and can I thank Erkut, Mikael and Michele as well. It's been absolutely fascinating to listen to you. I mean, my general take from all of this, listening to you sort of experts in your field, is that the brands will develop, and I think that's fantastic. The players make as much money as you can. I think that is absolutely terrific. But what I love about this generation and Mikael Silvestre's generation as well, they're very conscious individuals as well. We see it with the community work as well. So I think it's fantastic. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for listening, and back to you in the studio.